Thank you all for being out today. And let me thank the Jeff Bean Band for their music. Let me thank Nicole Surratt for her remarks. And let me thank Mindy Mesner for all the great work she's doing on the environment and for her support. Mindy, thanks so much. All right, let me begin by getting you all very nervous. All right? You ready to be made nervous? And here is the truth. Wish I could tell you something else. The future of this country, and given the crisis we face in climate change, whether or not we retain democracy in America, whether or not the planet resolves the crisis of climate change, your generation will make the difference. Now, that's a very awesome responsibility I'm giving you, but it's the truth. And the truth is, thank God, that your generation is the most progressive young generation in the history of this country. And you should be proud of that. You are a generation that is anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobia, anti-religious bigotry, anti-xenophobic. And that is the very good news. Well, let me give you the bad news. Your generation does not vote at the level it should be voting. And if your generation, now the good news is that in 2018 we saw young people participating in the election in much higher numbers than in the previous midterm elections. If your generation voted at the same level as older people did in America, we could transform this country in a very fundamental way. So what I'm here to ask of you is that at a time when we are living in an unprecedented moment in American history, and that's the truth, not your fault, not my fault, that's the way it is. This is an unprecedented moment, and we have got to act in an unprecedented way. And what that means, yes, you've got to vote. Yes, you've got to be involved in the political process, and I'll be talking in a moment about some of the issues I think we face. But you have got to go out to your friends, the guys in the dorm, the women in the dorm, and make them understand that they cannot sit it out. Now, I understand. I know that many of your friends think that politics is bullshit, right? All right. But you got to tell them that if they are worried about their student debt, if they are worried about working for $9 or $10 an hour, not making enough money, if they're worried about racism or sexism, if they're worried about climate change, that you tell them to stop moaning and groaning and have the guts to stand up and fight for justice in America. And let me tell you something else. The people who own this country, the big money interests, they want your friends not to vote. And they want your friends to think politics is stupid and irrelevant. You know why? Because they want to buy elections. And the only way they win elections is when they spend huge amounts of money and they suppress the vote. All right? And they want to convince people, oh, politics is so stupid. Why do you want to waste your time? They may not say it that way, but that is the implication. And meanwhile, they will spend hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the rich and the powerful. Well, if they are prepared to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on politics, you tell your friends that maybe they should get their ass to the polling booth and get involved in politics. Now, let me tell you something else that's going on, and it doesn't give me any pleasure to tell you this, but this is the truth. The political system that we are living under right now is a corrupt system. What democracy is about, which I believe in and you believe in, is one person, one vote. We all got the same amount of power. You got to vote, and you got to vote, and I got to vote. But what you got now as a result of Citizens United and other decisions is you got billionaires buying elections. That's not democracy. That is oligarchy. And then what you got is Republicans, including the governor of this state. He understands how powerful young people are. And you know how I know he understands it? Because he's trying to suppress the vote for young people. But it's not just the governor of New Hampshire. All over the country, you got Republican cowardly governors who can't win elections on the issues. They're making it harder for poor people, people of color, Native Americans, to participate in the political process. And we got to stand up to all of those people. We got to not be intimidated, and we got to get out and vote in record-breaking numbers. But it's not only the political system that is corrupt. Alongside of that, and totally dependent upon that, interrelated to it, is an economy which is rigged, an economy which works phenomenally well for the 1%, but not so good for the working people of this country. So what you got now, and you don't see this on television because of the folks who own the media, what you got now is the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth, and it's worse now than at any time since the 1920s. What you got now is 3 people in America, 1, 2, 3, owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 92%. And while here in New Hampshire and in Vermont and all over this country, you got people working 2 or 3 jobs. Talked to a woman in Iowa a couple of weeks ago, a mother of 3 working in McDonald's, trying to feed her family on $10 an hour, and she can't do it. And that's true all over this country. People working for starvation wages. 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%. So what we are talking about, and what my administration is about, will be about, is to say to the 1%, they cannot have it all. We're going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. Four years ago, I came to this campus, and I said, we got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. And 4 years ago, people said, that's too extreme, that's too crazy. Minimum wage in Washington, federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. You can't raise it to $15 an hour. But because people stood up and fought, groups like Fight for 15, you know who they are? All right, these are fast food workers who had the guts to go out on strike and tell the world they can't make it on $7.25 or $8 or $10 an hour. That at the very least we need a $15 an hour minimum wage. You know what's happened over the last 4 years? That idea that seems so crazy and radical has now been adopted by 7 states in America and the U.S. House of Representatives. And as president, we're going to have a $15 an hour minimum wage in every state in this country. We're going to have equal pay for equal work. And we're going to make it easier for workers to join unions so they can get decent wages and benefits. 4 years ago, and this is, I want to remind you of something that Nelson Mandela, you all know who Nelson Mandela was. Nelson Mandela said something that was very profound. He said, it always seems impossible until it is done. It always seems impossible until it is done. In other words, what the system tells you in every time you turn on the TV, all over the world, the system tells you is think small, not big. You can't accomplish anything. You have no power. You don't even have to vote. It's all crap. You can't do anything. That's what the system tells you. But what Mandela said in so many words is if you think big and you're prepared to struggle and fight, there is no limit to what you can accomplish. And that is the history of America. Real change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. That's the history of the labor movement, the women's movement, the civil rights movement, the gay movement, the environmental movement. When millions of people stand up for justice, they cannot be denied.